worry, because worry is one of those things that we all deal with, and it's not necessarily negative. It just means, for the most part, that we have unfinished business. There's a really cool thing. It's called the Zeigarnik effect or impact, and it essentially means that we as humans are more open and capable and worried about unfinished business than we are about things that have been closed. So when the cycle and the loops have closed, then we tend to let that be resolved in our psyche. And when things are still open and unresolved, then we remember them. We're more capable of remembering them, which could be a positive thing. Actually, writers and poets, philosophers, these types of people use this to their advantage by, like, let's say, going to sleep when you aren't quite finished with the piece that you're working on. And when you go to sleep, when you aren't quite finished with the piece that you're working on, you get these sort of like aha moments or these downloads that your psyche has been working on, or maybe attuned to other dimensional frequencies. And then because that tension exists within us, it pulls into us the key to the resolution. Now, that's from a positive standpoint. And a lot of us accidentally come across that, right? We go to bed and we get this hit of like, somebody said something earlier in the day that you didn't even know was an unfinished cycle. And then you sort of get that, like, I should do this thing that happens when you're going to sleep, or when you're in that, essentially like that phase between consciousness, awake consciousness, and the dream world, the sleep world. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because the more of these open loops that we have, the more that they could fall into the category of worrying. And worrying can start to tense and clench our body. And those of us who worry all the time know what I mean by this, right? And there's some of us who kind of don't worry, or maybe like even extreme, and like are apathetic with a lot of things and just don't care. And then there's a lot of us that are just sort of balanced, and we worry about the things that are unfinished, and we strive to close as many of those in the appropriate time frame. And so we're going to just talk a little bit today about worry and what the opposite of worry is, because the opposite of worry is not calming down, right? That seems to be like the thing that's said with someone who's worrying a lot. It's like, calm down, would you? So when you think about calming, calming from a sense of just calming down is a really passive thing. It basically means quit worrying and calm down. And when you just take that passive quitting of worrying, it really doesn't work. Just like anything that we're addicted to, if we just quit that thing, we're still craving that thing because nothing took its place. And so when it comes to worry, what's the thing that's going to take the place of worry? The answer to that, just checking some comments here. The answer to that is public chat. Hello, timely topic. Thank you, welcome. Hi, Ra. Hello. So, bypassing. Bypassing is the calming. Yes, right. That's another word of saying it. You're just passing it by, but it still exists. It's still living inside your body. So, the actual oppositeness of worry is this sense of agency. It's doing something about it. It's an action. It's a verb. And if you actually think about that, if you test that philosophy, if you don't have agency, does worry increase or decrease? If you can't do anything about it, does worry increase or decrease? It massively increases. If you're worried about something and you can't do something about it, that's a that's an increase. And there's science to back that up. When we have agency, we don't worry about things, right? We don't worry about locking the doors at nighttime because we can easily lock the doors before we go to sleep or when we come in. That's something that we have agency on. But if there is something preventing us from doing that, let's say we couldn't leave our bed, now we're worried about this thing and we're worried. And even if we can't check it, right? Like let's say we leave the house, did I lock the doors? I don't know, that's something to worry about now, right? Because we don't have the ability, we don't have the agency to do anything about it. Did I leave the iron plugged in? That's a classic version of this. Working to slow my mind and shift my focus. We're going to talk about worrying and how to slow your mind and shift your focus on that as well. Peace and love, Instagram. Just let me find your live. Is there a pending question? The questions are coming. The questions are coming. So yeah, let's start with the questions. What do I worry about constantly and consistently? Is there something that you worry about consistently? And we're looking for themes. So if you're worried that somebody's going to take something from you, it's not like this, I get worried that someone's going to steal my purse, right? But you might also get worried that someone's going to steal your jacket, or you have to triple check that you lock your car. Like that's a worry, right? And so we're looking for the theme that like maybe somebody's going to take something from you. So if you think about one thing you're worried about, is there others, and does that categorize into a theme? And this is excavating. So a lot of my work that we do every single week in self-expansion app, I have these practices, and a lot of it has to do with these questions, but then we embed it into the body with breath and movement. And the point of it is for us to reveal to ourselves what's going on, like what's the inner mechanism of our body, and is there another direction I'd like to take myself in. And when it comes to worrying, if we think about what do we worry about consistently as a theme, we should know what that is. And if we don't, then we can excavate and think about it. And if you're in the stage of life where you're more oriented towards the positive, right? The pendulum has swung and you're like, I'm just looking at the positive and the light of everything. Think about still what's underneath that shield, that perspective that you're wearing right now, because it is just a lens that you're trying on, and eventually you'll be able to integrate all of these aspects of self, including the negative. Because there is no positive without negative, there is no light without dark. So always being in the light is impossible, because there wouldn't be such a thing as light if there wasn't dark. So, and that exists within yourself. There are two polarities of the same thing, which is life. And so if you're having trouble thinking about something that you worry about, remind yourself that if you're not worried about anything, then you're just blinding yourself. So what can we dig up? And then the next question, which reveals a little bit more about the core of that worry. And this next question I just think it's an amazing revelation. The question is, what am I trying to protect myself from when I worry about this? What am I trying to protect myself from when I worry about this? What am I trying to protect myself from when I worry about this? I'm reading some comments. You guys can write these in the comments as well. Normally we journal about it in my membership program of these practices. I'm 63, living with my mom after I retired from 35 years as a RN, registered nurse. I had a healing crisis in 2022 that basically caused me to no longer work. This has brought financial challenges. I don't hear any worries in there though. That's all neutral facts of the event. Is there a worry in there that you can specify? We're made to live in community. So the fact that we live with our parents is actually more normal than us being isolated in these boxes that we call houses. All right, here we go. We got an answer for that. Am I still? What others think? Question mark. I'm 63, living with my mom after I retired for 35 years as an RN. Oh. What others think is the worry. Constant worry of what others think. Okay. And then question number 2. And question number 3 is also an amazing question. So stick around for that. But question number 2 is, what am I trying to protect when I worry about this? So what others think, what is that protecting you from? That is a deeper, like, what am I afraid of? Because again, what others think is kind of neutral. Is there something more specific that we can get to the heart of yourself? Here's another comment. I have OCD tendencies. In parentheses, I'm generally an extreme personality. From 20 to 40 years old, I had a habit of, when I left the apartment, even just being 20 feet away, returning about 3 times on average. So when you leave the apartment more than 20 feet away, you have to keep on coming back 3 times. What is the worry though? It's obvious to you, but it's not obvious to me. Like, I'm assuming you're returning because you're worried. I worried I would be stolen from and have less than I already had. And okay, I'm just going to go on a limb and say that you were protecting yourself, because you kind of answered it. The protection was that you would have less than you already had. So it's kind of like, the first question is, I was worried I'd be stolen from. The second question is, because I would have less than I already had. That was the actual root of the worry. All right, question 3. This is where we start to turn the corner. Question 3. Good to see you, Ra. Question 3. Thank you for the comments, guys. Question 3. When this worry quiets, what emerges out of me? So who am I without this worry? What do you feel if you just imagine yourself being worry-free? You guys can see from the comment about the living at home with the mom and the worry about what others think, that's intrusive and that's ever present. There is no escaping that. And so when the worry's there, that can really depress, which means to press in or down. It can really depress upon the body. And it might be challenging to imagine if there wasn't that worry, or it might be easy, but imagine if you're able to rip that worry off. I'm actually going to give you guys an exercise to do. And this actually wasn't from this practice. This is from another practice I designed. It's pretty cool. It's super, super, super quick to do. But you need to have this contrast. You need to have this contrast between this shield that we're putting on ourselves, and we'll call this worriness a shield, right? It's a protection mechanism, protecting from Melissa photo here in the comments, protecting her from having less than she already had, right? So she's worrying and constantly going back when she just left her place to check to make sure everything was there. And so we've got that, we're holding that as a construct. And then there's another construct which we need when we're doing this psychological reprogramming. We need to know what the replacement program is. What is that replacement program? And if we're having trouble recognizing, like, well, if I wasn't worrying, this is how it'd be. If that's a blank, then you just imagine a time in your life when this worry didn't exist. So back to the 63 living at home with mom, go back to a time when you weren't worried about that. And you sort of embody and you kind of tune into that frequency because that reality is still existing now. And so you open up that channel. And when we have those two contrasting states within ourselves, then we can do this exercise that I'm going to do. I was doing it on a live Zoom. It's funny. And it was like I was guesting in a community and I had them do it. And I couldn't see all the participants, but I think there was 2 cameras on that I could see and they weren't doing it. And so it's always cool as a teacher to have people do a practice and then they don't do the practice, because then there's a little voice in my head that starts talking and making up meaning to what that means, and then I get to play with that. How can I answer the third question without having control over my imagining life without that worry? Help me understand. Without having control over my imagining life, you do have control over your imagining life. Oh, but you're saying you don't have access to the control. You don't have access to imagine life without that worry, is what I think that you're saying here. Without worry is lots of peaceful joy and just is there naturally. Yeah, that's a beautiful experience. Protecting myself from judgment, or maybe protecting from not pleasing others. I joined your self-expansion app last week. Oh, amazing. So we did this practice this week. So on Monday, which is 2 days ago, I released a practice on worry. And this is sort of just like a follow-up talk on it. Thank you for participating. So the question that is on the table right now for you to answer is, when this worry quiets, if I can imagine this worry quieting, what emerges out of me? And guys, if we don't have that ability to imagine that, that's fine. But that's where it starts. And a lot of times we get inspired by others. So for instance, if I'm a gymnast and I've never done a double backflip, and someone says, imagine doing a double backflip, it might be hard to imagine that. And you might just think, well, there's no way I can jump that high and spin that fast and land. But when we see someone else do it, then we can start coordinating that and imagining ourselves do it. And maybe we get like a POV camera view, or maybe different camera angles, or we talk to the person that did it, and we can sort of start to piece in what it would feel like for me. Even though I've never actually ever done it before, I can bridge the gap. And it's always an assumption. It's not like I actually know what it's like to do the thing, but we color in the image a little bit. Okay, the exercise. So I think this one is good. At least one of you should practice this right now. So the exercise, one more time, feel like the worry, like you're wearing it like a jacket, like you're wearing this worry like a jacket, okay? And then inside you somewhere is that part of you that doesn't worry. And the example of living at home, like there's definitely access that you have to remember what it was like when you weren't worried about what other people thought of you. And I would just, oh, here's the answer to that. I would be confident and be in a state where I can allow, where I can allowance, where I can allow others to believe and feel and not take it personally. Allow others to believe and feel and not take it personally. Right. So when you can allow others to believe and feel what their body is doing, which is really none of our, like there's that saying, what you think is none of my business, right? But we're making it our business when we worry about it. And so if you can imagine inside of you, there's a part of you that doesn't worry about it. And it's not just not worrying, it's actually having the ability to allow others to have their own thoughts. And the agency I was talking about earlier, that comes with a little bit more deeper practice, but this is the easy practice that we can do. So let me just get this chair out of the way. So remember, the worry is this jacket that we're wearing, it's this shield. And we're going to rip it off ourselves. And we're going to reveal what else there is. And this is going to come with a jolt. So we're going to need a jolt, and we're going to use sound as a lever. Okay, so imagine you're like digging something out, right? And you have this shovel and you stick it underneath the rock. And then we use that leverage by pressing up here to pop that rock out. That shovel is the sound. And that sound is going to be the origin and the initiation of us doing this motion, this ripping off motion, like we're ripping off a jacket or ripping off a shield. And we're going to say, ha, like ha, 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 like you're laughing, but ha. And the sound needs to go to the root of your soul, the root of your soul. What I mean by that is that you're not just saying it up here, ha, you're letting it come from the deepest part of you. And it's almost like a scream, but it's not a scream in terms of loudness. Like you're not just trying to say ha, you're letting it explode out of you. And that explosion out of you of sound frequency is going to act like a sound bath, but you're producing it. And at the same time, you're doing this ripping motion, and we're just doing it eight times. 8 times. We go to one side, ha, one side, ha. After a few of them, you're going to start feeling what I mean by using that sound as leverage. And as we start doing it, we're only doing it 8 times. So if you started, stop, listen, because the amount of times that we do it is going to coordinate with how serious and how much we embody. If I'm just like, do it 28 times, we're not really paying attention. 8 times isn't that much. And the first 2 are gonna be like trying it on for size, and you really only have 3 to each side, okay? So it'll look like this. I'm gonna demonstrate 1, and then we're gonna do 8 together. So we're just stepping forward, ha! And we're just saying it, okay? Let that sound come out of you, and then we're going to the other side, saying it. So get that worry into your psyche, really grasp onto it, and then also infuse it into this shield around you. It's what you use to protect yourself, and be acknowledged on what you're protecting yourself from. So really connect into all of you're like finding those files within your computer. bring up those files onto your screen of awareness. And then also we have what you're imagining you are like without that worry. And that's within you. Okay, so we're digging that out, we're revealing that. So take an inhale, step your left foot forward, and let's begin. Ha! Step back up, inhale, right side. Ha! 6 more. Ha! 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 And once you're done, feel the worry, feel that scattered around you and just sinking into the earth. It served you once, not necessarily needed right now. And then what you're revealing inside, let that come out of your heart and let it shine out of your body. Feel it actually emanating out of your skin, out of your pores, out of your eyes, out of your navel center, out of your solar plexus, out of your heart, out of your throat. Feel it coming out of your back. And if we were to continue doing exercises like that, we would build up our trust and our agency. So what we're able to do, we'd build up our trust of our agency, and then we would commit to doing actions that would move us closer to the state of being of agency and further away from the state of being of worry. And so worry is like this thing that allows us to realize that there's a skill set needed, or there's something that we get to pay more attention to so that we're more able to handle these open loops. And the more of these open loops that we can close quickly, the less open loops that are going to calcify into our body. And that worry really exists within us as tension, because we're not going to want to move forward, we're not going to want to breathe fully, we're not going to be free in our jaw and in our voice if we have all these background files still open that's drawing on our bandwidth and bogging us down. Did you guys feel anything from ripping off that worry? I actually still feel that charge. That was quick, right? We're talking about like that's a 30-second exercise. Normally we do 15 to an hour and a half worth of things like that, having to do with the aspect that we're talking about. This week was worry. I believe last week was death. The week before that was joy. And so we have all of these different aspects of our life. We have our goals, right? That's like our target, that's our direction that we're going towards. We have our relationships around us. We have our weaknesses, which things like traumas can fall into. We have how we react, so our emotional responses to things. And we have our ability to steer directions and choose the programs and the actions that we do. There's all of these different aspects of our psyche that translate into action and emotional states, which then permeate into our creation of reality. And I like to practice them much like I did actual exercise, which is working on consistently different parts of myself all the time. So that some weeks I'm working on worry, and some weeks I'm working on my experience of joy and happiness. And some weeks I'm looking at my strengths, like what I actually use as a tool, and I'm refining those. And some weeks I'm looking at my weaknesses and patching up the leaks so that the vessel that I am can move in a more efficient way through the environment, which is everything that's happening around us, in a more efficient way. Yes, that it's worry causes tension that holds me back and creates pain and physical imbalances. That was a powerful practice. Thank you. When you do that, are you visualizing an individual? Yeah. If you joined late, I think if you're asking this, maybe you weren't here the whole time. We spent a lot of time digging into an individual worry. Like, what are we worrying about consistently? And why do we worry about that? And that kind of reveals a little bit about what we're worrying about. And then we also ask the question, what am I like without this worry? So that reveals the two dichotomies of self, right? Like this shield that we wear by worrying about things, and then what happens when we don't worry. Now, just doing this exercise isn't necessarily everything, right? We also, that bridge between worrying and not worrying isn't necessarily this. However, that helps. It helps to embed that when we have the other piece, which is the ability to act, when we have the agency, when we have the trust in ourself to act. And that happens through other exercises where we set off doing challenging things, including breath work, and we trust in ourselves so that when we determine that there's an action needed, we know that we have an ability to do it, so much so that there would be less worry and more agency. Thanks for the question. My 102-year-old client said worrying is like a rocking chair. You go back and forth, but you don't go anywhere, so don't worry. Right. Just joined. It made me cry to bring up that insecurity before I ripped it off of me. When you said feel it emanating out of you in every direction, I cried differently, feeling radiating relief. Thank you for sharing that. That was fast and hard results, Ra. Yeah, yeah, it was. I'm trying to bring it to you guys quickly here. You know, like this is live. On my recordings that we do in self-expansion, the membership area, I have the attention, right? So we can do a longer drawn out practice. We journal instead of me just asking. But on this live, attention spans are less. I always know when I begin to worry because I feel pressure on my bladder. As soon as I release it, the pressure goes away. Right. And tuning into where we feel worry was definitely part of the practice, the longer practice as well. Shoot, I missed the exercise. I actually think that this will be reposted as recording. What's your technique to release pressure for that area? Asking the bladder person. Imagining the jacket lets you see that you can take it off. Right, it's a choice. It is a choice. I mean, think about what we're talking about here. Worry, it's all happening within ourselves, right? So even, like, let's just take the two prominent examples that we've had here. Worrying of what other people will think, worrying that people will steal from me. Right? Like this is all happening within yourself. And we most of the time know logically that our worries are not needed. It doesn't prevent us from worrying though, right? So, but we know that what other people think about us doesn't really affect us, does it? No, but we're still worried about it. We also know that the likelihood that someone's going to steal something from our house, our home, every time we leave the house is also very, 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 very low. And even if that does happen, it's bound to happen, guys. The things that we worry about, usually it's okay if they happen as well. Like it's not the worst thing in the world. And if you think about it, the way that I sort of managed myself around worry a long time ago I've gotten scammed before out of tens of thousands of dollars. I've gotten things, my car's broken into a lot of times. I think like 3 times. One time I just happened to have 25 or 3,500, I forget how much, dollars of cash in my glove compartment. I don't know. Why did I have that much cash? I think I had some clients that paid me cash, private clients. And then I also had a checkbook that they then wrote, oh, a bee. So there's a bee landing on me right now. So this is an example of what happens when a bee lands on you. Do you worry? Or are you grateful that you might get some bee venom therapy for free without any karma that you caused death to the bee because you accidentally, it stung you, not you killed it. So I'm going to read the comments in a second. I'm going to get back to the worry. Let me finish this thought. I was going on a tangent with breaking in the cars, and oh yeah, that was a fun tangent. Gosh, imagine walking up to your car and being like, I had a suit in the back seat. Where the heck is that? And looking in the back seat and be like, my suit's gone? I had like a suit jacket. And then being like, oh, I had something even more important than that, which was a lot of cash in my center console. That's gone too. And then finding out in the next couple of weeks that your checkbook was in there as well. And they cashed in, I think, around $5,000 in checks, but that got reimbursed. The cash didn't, obviously. Things like this are going to happen, right? I had a friend who said, hey, I'm going to invest in this thing, give me $10,000. Then he disappeared with my money. Things like this are going to happen. Got my wallet stolen. One guy came and asked me for some money, and at the time I had this very strict rule that I don't give people money because that makes them weaker. And it was, I'm beyond that now, but now I feel like it fulfills me by serving people in that way. But at the time I was testing or just not giving people money. So I said no. For some reason I left my wallet. There seemed to be, like, I'm obviously not worried about money getting stolen from me because that time the guy broke I'm assuming it was that guy later on that night, broke my window and took my wallet, which I just left in the center console of my car as well. I was realizing a pattern. I don't really care when people steal money from me because I'm not ever worried about it. But I guess the point I'm making is these things are going to happen in our life a couple times. And so why worry about it? Your Kawasaki Z1000, who is that? How do you know I have that? I had that. My Kawasaki Z1000 got totaled on the 405. I guess I never really worried about getting, I worried constantly about getting in motorcycle accidents actually. But I got hit on the 405 with that thing. During the process of lunging forward, ripping, exhaling, returning to the center, exactly when was I supposed to visualize how I would feel after releasing the worry? I love this. So basically, we did that rather quickly. If I had like a group of us in person, I would have probably had a lot more space between the ripping off. But essentially, it's up to you. It's for you. Everyone's going to feel it differently. And so I generally don't give too much advice on how to do the techniques. It was more about the visualization. And so the way I did it this time was we did the 8 reps and then we imagined this like glowing, emanating version of self free of the worry and able. It wasn't necessarily free of worry. It was what we are without the worry. That was really the target of what we were feeling. And that you should still be feeling now. And know that that's inside you. We just choose to wear the jacket. It's just easier for us to wear the jacket. And so exposing ourselves, being vulnerable, that takes an extreme level of trust and agency and courage. And the more that you practice being courageous, and let's say you just live the next 1 hour of your life without the jacket. Can you leave your house right now and go to the store and not come back just to see how that feels? Practice this thing. Can you not worry about what other people think and just be okay with whatever they think? Do a meditation. This person knows that I live at home with my mom and I'm happy that they do. Like, are you able to test that theory out? And how did it go? You'll recognize that a lot of times it's easy. It just takes a permission slip. You need to give yourself the permission slip, and a lot of times it's just a test. I'm just gonna fake it out and just to see how it is. I'm gonna meditate on it. And you realize like, oh, I do have the possibility to meditate on it. And then that starts to infuse into your actual life. In Self-Expansion app, do you recommend starting with the first class and move forward, or should I focus on the new content? The first 2 classes were challenging since I'm disconnected from my heart. Okay, that's a good question. So in there, the first video you're gonna come up is me explaining that, hey, there's 2 different types of practices. There's short practices and there's long practices. Now the long practices, I started about 1.5 years ago. So I think there's probably like 75 of them. And I make a new one every single week. So what I would do is start with a longer practice, which is like the one that got released Monday. Do that, and then just do that every week. And then go way back, like to the modules called like earth, air, water, and just start experimenting with some of those. Those are shorter, but they're also more intense because those are like 15 minutes long. So it's just like, it's like intensity. It's like, it's like that for 15 minutes. So they're shorter 15 minutes, and then start just working your way through those short ones is going to give you a whole bunch of different exposure to different aspects of yourself, different movements, different breath, different strengths, especially resiliency, and then start getting into the longer ones. Now there's the recent longer ones, like the last 3, are of a lower intensity than like last year's longer ones. Last year's longer ones were long, hour and a half. Now they're like 45 minutes because I adjusted. The hour and a half seemed to be too long for some people, too intense. All right, guys, I really needed to hear this today. Ever since I blew 2 tires and couldn't get a hold of anyone, didn't have AAA and not much money, I'm more hesitant to drive late at night or in bad weather. I was never like that, so this is timely. Amazing. I did make myself drive after this winter storm here in Connecticut. Raw of Earth programs can be found at rawoferth.com and selfexpansion.app. Yes. Bianca's saying I'm lagging on TikTok. It might be a TikTok thing. Nobody else said anything on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, but I'll check that out on TikTok. Thank you, Bianca. Hope everything's well as well for you. Everybody else, I'll be here next week talking about what we practice next week. And thank you for being here. Thank you for the comments. And thank you for practicing. Bye-bye.